Hi, I wanted to start homework 10 off here, showing you some new features of Jupyter that I'm exploring. I've added Jupyter Notebook extensions. These are some of the extensions. I've enabled, I'm not sure what that is. Code folding is adding a little arrow. I'll show you that coming up. I don't know what this is. I'm using the widgets when I interact, when you use the slider or the button to change how a graphic looks. I think this extension is this menu. This has sort of a weird user interface. Rise turns this into Google Slides or PowerPoint. Ooh, spelling checker. I've got to check that one out. So let me go up here and untoggle this. This enables me to choose the spelling checker. Wow. I've never even run my brain through this. Table of contents fights with Rise. This is a playground where you can try out new features of Jupyter that are evolving. And you can see the collapse of these features into a new Jupyter called Jupyter Lab. That's as in Jupyter in the laboratory. That's the beta, new name for beta. So I'm not choosing table of contents. I'd love to spend the time right here, but I haven't. Split cells means making two windows inside of Jupyter, and you can see that in Jupyter Lab right now if you click on Jupyter Lab inside of Anaconda. Okay, so now I press reset, choose this, make sure spelling checker is on, yes, and now I go back to files. Okay, so this is what it looks like when you're running Rise. That's the slideshow. It adds this little icon right here to go into the slideshow, and then you can manipulate the slideshow using slide, subslide, and I have just used slide and subslide. I have not explored fragment. I know what skip does. It just doesn't show the slide at all. So now I'm going to start the slideshow. Well, first I'm going to press F11 and get rid of the web interface. And now I'm going to start the slideshow. And I press home to get to the beginning of it, and then we're there. Okay, so what I want to do now is I want to race through all the slides. And I'm going to do this now, rather than going horizontally, I'm going to go vertically. And I'm using the page down key. So this parallels the normal Google Slides, Microsoft PowerPoint presentation. So you can see I've chopped these up into concepts that fit on a slide. There's some raw Python code that I'm illustrating. And I'm reviewing the lecture 19. Now you can see that the vertical dimension has been lost over here. So I have to go horizontally, and now I can go down again through the next concept. So this is going through the pulse width modulation details. But now I'm at the bottom of that part 1. Now part 2. I can go down. I'm using the page down key. I can also go up. I can go down if people ask me questions. So you can see the presentation is definitely done by LaTeX. So each of these is a point, I'm mixing up the typeset math with raw Python code that I can change. I mean, I can go up here and just change that. This is not relevant, but yeah. And I can scribble on this if it gets complex. Right? So let's just chase our fundamental frequency. Where is it at? Well, the fundamental frequency is pi divided by 6. In this particular problem. So there's the fundamental frequency, wherever you see pi over 6 multiplied by k. And I can go back and forth with this. So I can go page up, page down. If I want to clear off the blue, there's a keyboard shortcut. I think, what is it? Equal sign? Reset the chalkboard. Right, equal sign. Reset chalkboard date on the current slide. Okay, so I click on the equal sign. It says, do you really want to clear it? And I say, okay. There it's gone. So now I'm at the bottom of that part 2 of the homework. Part 3. Now you can see this slide maybe needs to be split up. So I need to split this up into 2 concepts. All right. Oh, it's treating each slide as a marker between horizontal and vertical. So when I mark a cell as a slide, that's when it changes its vertical to horizontal. So the table of contents needs to be integrated right here. I have loaded the table of contents notebook extension, but they conflict with each other. So Rise has, never mind, I'm going to talk about that coming up. Oh, let me show you this. So here's the core deck. I just clicked on it. Now I've gone back to the Wikipedia web browser. How do I get back to the slides? Let's see. I'm going to toggle F11 and go back to here. There we go. And then toggle F11. Right. So this is where I'm comparing the textbook or the lecture notes or the homework solutions with my solution and making sure that they're equal to each other. So now what I want to do is present you with a vision of the future. I started off this doing that with displaying all the notebook extensions, and I chose spelling checker, and I went through my entire homework solutions, and there were enough English words in there for the spelling checker to kick in and tell me something was wrong. So maybe I've got it configured wrong, but I suspect that the server side of this, not the desktop in my office or in front of the students, but the server side needs to be configured to do the spelling check. I don't know this for certain. I don't have time to chase all these things down. The server side of this looks like this. It's a program running in my computer. So I have direct control over it, but it could be a program running on an HCC server, sort of like Microsoft Exchange does our email. And I really need this support from somewhere. It doesn't have to be HEC IT, but this is what can give HEC a leg up in the future, differentiate itself from everybody else, is to totally embrace this environment. So what I want to do is talk about what the possibilities are if the IT department at HCC began to switch from Canvas to Jupyter. And now I'm going to get out of this presentation mode and start showing you the details of each of these concepts. If you look at a MOOC today, the MOOCs have video and then they pause with a question that checks your knowledge of that concept. If I look at all of these notebook extensions, somewhere in here is one that grades. Somewhere in here is one that plays a video and then stops at a cell where there's a question. Somewhere in here is the ability to automatically grade those questions and put them in a Canvas-like gradebook. But I can't do that. I need help doing that. I'm just an instructor. So what I want to do is show you what that would look like in this environment as an instructor. I would have here another box that says, yes, this is part of that MOOC slide, that MOOC video. This is part of a MOOC video. Now stop right here, and there'd be another separate box where I put in a question, and it could be all the variety. I've seen it, I played with it. I just don't have the server side of it done yet. But what it would do is capture the student's performance on that quiz. And then in addition to what Canvas does, it provides me feedback opportunities differently than Canvas does. Canvas, if the student gets a wrong answer, you can throw up some HTML. Here, I can choose what happens if the student gets the wrong answer. I could branch off to another whole Jupyter notebook. I mean, the possibilities are endless. And it's programmable. It's something I could have control over as an instructor. But if they get it right, then I can just go on and skip some stuff here. This is the picture of the future. I want you to see how it encourages me to chop things up into little tiny concepts that can be tested, little tiny clips of video that can be inserted in here. So let's go find the one that was too big. That was where I computed it's down here at the bottom, the 49, the 4.1 hertz low pass filter frequency calculation. Where's that? Right here. This is the one that's too big. So how would I go about making this smaller? I'm setting up, doing the math. So what I want to do is put a little comment in here saying finding K for 4.1 hertz. Okay, that's where I've done it. And then this is interpreting what happened. What does this mean? Relating K to a cutoff frequency. So I'm trying to mull over it and chew over it in my mind. So now I'm going up here and I'm pressing Control-Shift-minus. That splits that cell. The cell subtype stayed the same as a subslide. And now what I can do is go back in here, sitting at that cell, and look at what I've done. Page down. There it is. That's the first one. And that's the second one. I want to end this with a vision of the very near future. I want to alternate between staring at this notebook, so I'm just going to scroll around within it, where we have technical capture of all non-physical activity, and this picture of various snippets of software, features of Jupyter notebooks that are evolving, like spell checker. In the current world, you can't look at a PDF without having an Adobe Reader. We can't look at a document without having Microsoft Word or Google Docs. You can just go down the list. The programs own their own data. In this world, the data is in control. Here's the data. Here's the list of videos that build up to this concept. Here's the math that builds up to the concept. Here's the language, the English, that builds up to that concept. Here are all the programs that help us develop the notebooks, manage the notebooks, put in little checks, little tests to see if you are understanding what's going on, switching around the dynamic from reading to answering a question, to listening to a video, to writing some code, to writing some words, to answering some multiple choice questions, all the activities of learning that we can possibly dream up are evolving right here on top of this data. So what's happening is the world's flipping, and Microsoft has to open up the data, not open up their software. The same with Google. So the second point is that in the past, education has been the center of socialization and social change. The reason it has been successful is because information was the context in which people talk to each other. And we need to get back to that. Education can't compete with social media. It can't compete with students talking to each other. When the students are telling each other wrong things, false things, and then believing it, we've lost control. What needs to be at the center of the discussion is the work product. Is this Jupyter Notebook? Discussions about the Jupyter Notebook can be captured when we give students the freedom to edit these things, to improve this explanation, to add another cell, to skip a cell. That's when education will take off. And then all we do as professors is we just guide this. This is the vision of GitHub. This is why Microsoft bought it for, I don't know what it was, $1 billion in 2018. I need HEC, IT to start building Jupyter servers, to start building Jupyter lab servers, which are the next version that's coming out. I need HEC IT to start supporting GitHub. Look at gist right here. Gist is the gist of something. It's GitHub's name for a Jupyter cell that is being repeatedly used over and over again. I have gists now for NES 222 that I would love to be able to start using in a more effective way. I could talk about this endlessly, all these things in here endlessly. It's attractive. It's the future.